Yo, what's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. It's the playoffs. Uh,
Yeah, I'm being sucked into the Chicago Bears high drama. I will say, I don't know what the Pope did, but that team is being ridiculous. It's in overtime right now, but I turned it off so we could podcast because that's dedication.
well, I mean, for the sake of it, what's the score so far as we speak?
It's 17-17. They
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah, no, they just went into overtime, but.
Okay. Well, I do know the Niners lost to the Seahawks, so I mean, like, I don't pay attention to football, but I will say, as someone from the Bay Area, like the Niners and Raiders, I'm just like, I don't even know if I can count them as Bay Area teams anymore. Like,
Well, obviously not the Raiders, but
yeah, definitely not the Raiders, but like, I don't know. Mm. I mean, it just seems like there isn't like a lot of, loyalty to, well, definitely the Raiders. Like, because I've always grown up, I always known them as the Oakland Raiders, and now it's like they're the Las Vegas Raiders or some shit. Uh,
Raiders fans have held on apparently. I don't know.
yeah, it's whatever. But anyway, yeah, it is obviously the playoffs right now, so thought I'd mention that. But yeah, today is January 18th, 2026. In Yeah, so there's obviously a lot that's been happening. Oh, announced at the beginning. Yeah, this is Real Sankara Hours, your favorite Pan-African socialist political podcast where we talk about news, current events, black culture, and all the stuff happening around in the world from a black left, capital L left perspective, particularly in the Pan-African socialist uh, perspective. So, let's see. If you go to our website, realsankarahours.org, and you can become a patron on patreon.com /realsankarahours. $5 a month, you can become a patron and get access to bonus episodes, bonus content. If that is beyond your monthly budget, there's a $3 tier to become a supporter. But also, we are on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, so if you go on our website, you can see where to find us. But if you are listening to us on YouTube, the best way to support us is to become a subscriber. So subscribe to our channel and click the bell notification icon so that you can be notified of new episodes that get uploaded. So the more subscribers, the more views that boost us in the algorithm. And before we continue with our episode, one thing I've been looking at with YouTube is that they do filter and censor, not like explicitly censor, but they do filter. The algorithm will kind of filter out political content that talks about stuff like Palestine and controversial things. So this podcast, we are completely unfiltered with our language. We're not going to censor, our profanity. I thought I mentioned that because I did get an email on our website, on our email address, realsankarahours@gmail.com. So if you want to send us an email, you can email us there. But a couple of our episodes, yeah, were age restricted. Because one of our episodes has a curse word in the title. I mean, who cares? But it's something to keep in mind. So, given what YouTube does, look, hey, the best way you can support independent black media like this is to become a subscriber on our YouTube platform and to become a patron on our Patreon website. So, anyway, with that housekeeping out of the way, I am Adam Hudson. just go on my website, adamhudson.org, to see my writings and other stuff I've done, including my music. Yeah, this is Adam Hudson here.
As Peter MGunn, and yeah, I guess let's get into it.
Yeah.
I suppose the main political story since we last recorded is I call him the Waddle SS because one of the things I wasn't prepared for in our dystopian Fourth Reich state was just that the Gestapo would be like so fucking fat and out of shape.
Oh yeah.
That's like kind of the most embarrassing thing about it is like I would expect them to be all roided up and stuff, and certainly some of them are. The piece of shit that did the murder, he was actually, I think he was in Iraq or something. He was a troop, but so many of them are just like just the most ridiculous, just loser motherfuckers. And anyway, yes, you know, they killed a white woman this time, so obviously,
yeah,
it's time to resist fascism.
Yeah, and this is her name is Renee Nicole Good. Yeah, she was shot on January 7th. So about 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, it was like a couple days after we recorded.
Yeah, she was a mother, a poet, and her former husband passed away a couple years ago. So she got remarried to a woman by the name of, I believe, Becca Good. And yeah, there is video of there's ICE presence in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and there was quite a few cell phone footage of basically to illustrate what was going on. She was
including by the guy himself.
Yeah, and so what happens? They were trying to redirect her, say hey, yeah, you're blocking, what we're doing. You have to turn around, move away, blah 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 blah. And so, her partner gets out the car and she starts filming ICE. And one of Renee Nicole Good's last words were, I'm paraphrasing, but I don't have a problem. She said, "I don't have a problem with you, man." And so this is the thing I noticed based on both of the videos is that they didn't really first of all, they were giving her conflicting commands, and they were not clearing a pathway for her to drive away. But what you can clearly see in the video, and by the way, she was 37 years old, so she was around our age. So she was trying to drive away from the group of ICE agents, and the guy who shot her, Jonathan Ross, he walked in front of her vehicle, which is also not recommended, even within ICE's own within their own protocol. You're not supposed to walk, because it makes no fucking sense. Because you tell someone, "Hey, move away, move away, move away." Why would you, as a law enforcement agent, walk in front of the vehicle when other agents are telling that person to drive away, right? They're telling her drive away. So why would you tell someone like Renee Good to drive away, move away, because this is a law enforcement operation, blah 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 blah, and then walk in front of her vehicle? Because he was walking around the SUV and then walked right in front of her vehicle. So it makes no fucking sense. Why would and so she was, even from Ross's video, she was clearly trying to drive away, and then he just fucking shoots her 3 times, and she died. And there is this very, tragic photo of the aftermath. By the way, ICE denied medical basically medical help for her, even though there was a physician there in the neighborhood. They were in a residential area, and there were community members who were like, "Why the fuck is ICE here?" So there were people who were like, you know, talking back at ICE because obviously, like, they didn't want ICE there, and a lot of what ICE is doing is fucking just not only illegal but tramples on what America purports itself to be to the rest of the world. So people are obviously agitated. And Renee Good and her partner were like, mouthing off to the ICE agents, which, as far as I can tell, that's not exactly a crime. But now, like, per, one of our, if you're going to compare America to, the Nazis, I guess, that would mean that Kristi Noem is like, I don't know, I guess Herman Goring or one, like, if we were to compare like
Oof.
Trump to Hitler, I guess it wasn't make Kristi Noem. She's got to be like one of those high ranking like Nazi party or SS leaders, right? Like I'm thinking of maybe Herman Goring. I'm trying to think of another one, but like,
Yeah, I don't know my Nazis as well as some, but yeah, Himmler or something. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, they do like it. It
Well, I
would
mean,
see. Oh, go
oh
ahead.
sorry, this will connect to your point, but like, yeah, the reason why I mentioned Kristi Noem is because like DHS, Department of Homeland Security, they're trying to redefine domestic terrorism to include political ideology and like basically they're now getting more extreme where like if you interfere with like the law enforcement operations of ICE, then you're they're basically trying to equate that with like domestic terrorism or some shit. But yeah, like people like Kristi Noem, JD Vance, Stephen Miller, like these are the Heinrich Himmlers and Herman Gorings of like and obviously yes, like America has its own unique iteration in history of fascism when you include like the history of Jim Crow and slavery in this country, but since
And
people
and of course, famously, America it was Hitler's inspiration. He's basically
yeah.
trying to do America in Europe.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. So, but since people are like, comparing America to Nazis, because I think part of the reason why there's that comparison is because people are more familiar with like how evil the Nazis were compared to like, America's own history with that. But like, if we're going to run with that metaphor, then like, okay, then our America's Heinrich Himmlers and Herman Gorings are fucking Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller. But yeah, like they're trying to redefine domestic terrorism to include political ideology and like trying to interfere with ICE operations. But there is a photo of the aftermath of Renee Good being killed, and it was basically the blood-soaked airbag from the steering wheel and obviously the driver's seat, and then in the passenger seat, the next to the driver, there is a glove compartment with stuffed animals, and that just shows like how, just the fucking just sheer unrestrained barbarism. So on the one hand, in terms of like how I feel, and then I want to know your thoughts, Peter, but like obviously this is like incredibly horrific and just it's sad because especially her age, right? She's 37, she's around our age. So I feel like Renee Good is someone like, oh, I probably would know her, just same generation basically.
Yeah, I feel like if kind of person you'd see if you showed up to a lot of leftist meetings and
Yeah.
just I'm sure, overall kind soul and
Yeah.
doing the right thing in the moment. I mean, I will also say that the
Mm-hmm.
comparisons to Nazi Germany are not just analogous, like they are literally using Nazi phrases, like literally
Mm-hmm.
Kristi Noem like stood in front of a podium that had a Nazi phrase And like with the Nazi, I learned what the Nazi font was, which I didn't realize like they had to have their own font because, part of the thing about fascists is they're very precious, they're very particular. They gotta have the aesthetics right.
Yeah. That was
And
yeah. They were pretty big on that. The Nazis. Yeah.
yes, who is it? Not Walter. I think it was Walter Benjamin who said fascism is the aestheticization of politics. And so yes, it's got to look right. But beyond that, this is a white supremacist ideology. The reason that they are doing mass deportations is to keep America a white country. They are very concerned about the idea that white people would become a minority in the United States, and that is underneath all of it. That is actually why these operations are going on. I mean, that's really what ICE is for, is to preserve white hegemony in the United States of America. Yeah, I mean, so like they are fucking Gestapo fascist piece of shit. That's why they're here. And they like when they do things that seem illogical, the point is not to enforce the laws. The point is terrorize people.
Yeah.
So, Minneapolis has been standing up as, they are wont to do. That's a pretty righteous city overall, and, good for them, but it is just like, I don't know. On the one hand, it is like seeing some of the protests or whatever, like the people that have dance parties outside the detention facilities, and, we were told a lot that protest is supposed to be a joyous act and like showing your like it's about celebrating the weirdness of life, which is true in some degree. I think there's a place for that. I don't necessarily know if that's what people. I don't know if that's what needs to be seen right now, but I also just genuinely don't know exactly what is that should be done outside of things I can't say or shouldn't say publicly. But yeah, it's just like even if you have a governor like Tim Walz, who at the end of the day is a Democrat, and I mean part of the thing about it is that like uh, it should be like a baseline, even for the midterms, like they should like how would they run on not like if we get control of Congress, we're not gonna like severely restrict ICE's budget and you know haul them in front of congressional hearings and all that fun stuff. I mean, I don't, it's kind of seems like they're not even going to be running on something like that. And then, the thing that I guess I have an issue with, not to always tie it to electoral politics, but that is the way everything gets metabolized these days. Part of the issue I have is like the people who on threads again, which I really need to stop. I'm sorry. But, it's like, you have to vote for the Democrats because there's fucking fascism going on. And then the Democrats are not like, yeah, we're going to stop fascism. And this is how we're going to do it. It's just like, well, we probably wouldn't have done that. But, like, I'm sure ICE have killed people before Trump's second term. I mean, they've been around for a while and, like, they've always been doing terrible things. Like, it's always been a completely unaccountable agency. And yes, in a sane, rational country, like, you can, like, those kinds of agencies should be gotten rid of, Like, even Argentina got rid of its intelligence agency, like, a couple decades back, or, like, completely restructured it under Christina Kirchner. Which is proof that like these kind of things can be done. It's just that nobody wants to, and just it's like we've lost even like the civic nationalism that did a large role in keeping the American project going, in the sense of like yes, white supremacist capitalist imperialism, but also uh, rule of law and freedom of expression and all this stuff. And so, yeah, I just everyone do what they can, when the moment presents itself. But the thing is that doing what needs to be done when the moment presents itself could cause you to go to jail or be shot. And, we don't really do a good job of like holding on to our martyrs. The left has plenty. Like, that's the one thing I don't like when people are like, everyone just talks about it, but no one's out there doing it. And then the people that are out there doing it, like, some of them die,
Yeah.
and like, what do we do in response? Like, what they're always betting on is just that people forget, and people haven't forgotten, I think, and I don't think they will, in the sense of like, oh, well, let's just move on because ICE is just going to get more terroristic. I mean, the thing that really sickened me was like these ICE agents went to a Mexican restaurant, went there, ate
Oh,
dinner,
yeah.
and then like then because even arrested implies that there's like they're breaking a law. They just snatched like everyone in the kitchen, which like that's my coworkers, and I think about that every day I'm at work. What happens, uh, if ICE shows up to my workplace? What am I willing to do? Um, depending on how I'm feeling that day or whatever. I like to think that uh, I heed the historical call of duty. To use the interesting phrase, but you know, does anyone actually know what they're going to do in that moment? You can only hope that you you rise to the occasion. But yeah, like we shouldn't make anything quiet, but it's just I can't tell. I don't have the grand strategy for this. I wish someone did. That would be nice, but it's not, these kinds of things aren't overcome by, one idea, one person's plan. I mean, this is, it takes a whole, you know, collective movement, and it takes a while, like, to overturn, a fascist order. Like, no, fascism does eventually lose, but it takes a long time, and it kills a lot of people in its wake. So, that's where we are. Uh, USA.
Yeah, and the way my other thought about the fact of Renee Good being a white woman who was killed by ICE because ICE has killed a lot of other people who are not white, and you didn't see the massive outpouring of rage. Because one thing that like did bug me a little bit was that, but she was a U.S. citizen. Like, what? ICE is overstepping their authority. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, because ICE is immigration, customs, and enforcement. So, what business do they have killing a U.S. citizen? And so, like, people are using that fact to basically say that ICE isn't there purely for immigration. It's about like mass deportations and is now Trump's Gestapo. Like, okay, so there's that. But then it's also like, in another way, it's look, I do think that most Americans are going to be more sympathetic when a white person is killed, especially you know, a white woman. Now, on the other hand, like the right wing, because she was a white woman who was, like left wing and a poet and a lesbian, they hate her because she's a lesbian and like she's like standing in solidarity with, you know, non-white immigrants. But, you know, while her death was horrible, look, I just think that her death was kind of, in a lot of ways, unsurprising because America's already desensitized to Black Death. America's already desensitized to police killings of Black people. Like even before we pressed record, I was talking to you, Peter, about Black Lives Matter, and like there are two waves of Black Lives Matter: the Ferguson uprising in 2014, almost 12 years ago at this point. Which, dang, it's crazy to think that it's been over 10 years since that happened. And then the George Floyd protests in 2020, which at this point happened almost 6 years ago. And on the one hand, I do think that the protests have, I think, shifted the Overton window a little bit in terms of, it used to be before Black Lives Matter, whenever you talked about Black issues or the issues that are facing Black people, the response typically from not just the right wing, but even to some extent some liberals would be, it's a problem of behavior and culture and yada yada yada. Like the race discourse in America before BLM was pretty like.
I mean, yes,
looking back, is pretty
silly
and cartoonish. So it was bad. Like
it's astonishing how atrocious it was into like 2011, 2012, where yes, you had to get into like full-on arguments with the average white person about the existence of institutional racism, and now most white people generally agree that it exists and that the police are racist and that they like to kill Black people especially. I mean, I will just say I do think that for many white liberals this might have been a wake-up call, because it really did drive home that like it will not stop with immigrants, it will not stop with the other, like they're coming for you next. And you know, this is not someone who had an especially like radical history as far as I know. You know, basically your average do-gooding white woman, you know, and you know, yes, they like there's and the idea that like, okay, well, they're cleaning up the poor areas, you know, it's over there. It's not in, you know, the Tony White suburbs. So it's okay, but you know, they're there too because who works in the restaurants and who's the janitors and who are the you know, and who cleans the hotels in the rich areas of the city as well. So like, come on, you know, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop with any of it. I mean, that's not how fascism doesn't stop. It doesn't get satisfied with violence. It's not like it gets to a point where it's had enough violence and then it's done. It worships violence.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. It is the collapsing of like the civil order into a celebration of violence. And so yeah, I feel like for the internet Nazis, at first they're like, huh, and then, you know, JD logged the fuck on. Oh man, Vice President Tweeter in Chief. I mean, but also hilarious. And maybe this can be a good way to tie into Venezuela stuff. Unless you have something else. Yeah, finish your point.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. I have just to like kind of hammer this home, but like, and then we can, like, this will be a good point to shift to Venezuela. But you know, like I said, I just think that her death is, if you really understand this country, it's not completely surprising, because I think that domestically America has become desensitized to Black Death, because when it comes to Black Lives Matter, it may have shifted the consciousness, but in terms of any legislative or structural change, Black Lives Matter didn't achieve anything. It's not like the civil rights movement where you actually got some landmark legislation that, the 1964 Civil Rights Act was probably one of the most significant pieces of legislation in terms of like the massive structural change it had in America's institutions when it comes to eliminating racial discrimination, which also said that also, it also eliminated gender discrimination, and that also had an impact on LGBTQ rights, and it had an impact on immigration. So like the ripple effect of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which came as a result of the African American led civil rights movement and the Black liberation movement, that the result of that was incredibly significant legislative change that led to some real structural change. Again, when it came to ending formal and legalized discrimination based on race, based on gender, sexual orientation, and then it also laid the pathway for reforms to immigration. Like, that's huge. That's huge, and especially if you are Gen X to Millennial to Generation Z. Like, our generations have grown up in a world where our reality was shaped based off the victory of that legislation. When it comes to Black Lives Matter, there is no equivalent legislation that got passed that reformed American law enforcement. I mean, if anything, one, police have gotten more money. So when people are saying, oh, well, BLM has led to cutting of police budgets. No, like, police funding actually fucking increased. And when you add in fucking ICE, I mean, come on, like, ICE's budget is more than FBI's. So the police got more money. And there are still shootings of people, particularly Black people. So it has not led to any real substantive structural change within American law enforcement and our system of mass incarceration. Like, it really, like, maybe to some extent when it comes to like maybe rethinking like the mandatory minimums on sentencing, but like that was somewhat different than like the demands of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter was more focused on police killings, but for the most part, like, there wasn't any significant legislative or structural change when it comes to American law enforcement. So Black Lives Matter didn't achieve anything. And I think as a result, I just think that this country has just become more desensitized to Black death at the hands of police. Like, I think people, probably realize, oh, this is bad, but like, it's like, whatever. It's like, oh, it's sad, but like, it's okay. And then we spent the last like damn near fucking 3 years seeing a genocide against the Palestinians be live streamed on fucking social media. And this country, like, that, no cutting of funding to Israel, and just sending more fucking money to Israel so it can continue its genocide. And then you add in the long history of the U.S. war machine and the death and destruction it's wrought on Black and brown people around the world. America itself, America and American culture is very much desensitized to massive levels of violence abroad and domestically against people who are not white. And once that kind of violence gets fucking normalized, at some point the violence will get turned on white people. And Renee Good, her death is an example of that, because this country's violence and racism has gotten so normal that like, okay, yeah, there are going to be some white people who get killed, particularly the white people who are the do-gooder types, particularly the white people who, you know, want to fight for justice and want to stand in solidarity with black and brown people. Like, yeah, it's gonna be those white people who get killed because when it comes to the system of white supremacy, I mean, back in during Jim Crow, like white people who were in favor of integration, like they had a name for them. They called them nigger lovers. Like if you were a white person who was opposed to segregation, like you were seen as you were called nigger lover. Like you were not seen as a good white person, particularly in the South. If you oppose segregation, you were not seen as one of the good white people. And Renee Good's death, like, should not be seen as surprising. It is absolutely tragic, and my heart goes out to her and her family, particularly her child. But if you understand this country, it's not surprising. But I do think, and it doesn't take away from the tragedy of her death, but I do think the fact that she was, a white woman, someone who doesn't fit the profile of someone who's like an immigrant coming to take your job, or so a homeless black person. Like if a homeless black person gets killed by the police, like,
It's not even in news article.
Yeah, people aren't really like.
It's just on the blogger.
Yeah, like let's say if Renee Good were, let's say her name was like Jamal, and she was like instead of a white woman, she's a homeless black man who, let's say he's behind on child support. Let's say that. Let's say like he fits the profile, fits the stereotype of that most people have of black men. Like, you ain't shit, you're deadbeat dads. Let's say she fits that. And let's say like, that black man gets killed by the police. Like, are you gonna see like people fucking burning shit? Probably not. I mean, even with George Floyd, I really think the reason why that the protests were so big in 2020 was a lot of people had cabin fever. I think that was a reason why for the volume of the protests was people having cabin fever and it being caught on tape. But I do think her being a white woman, like, is part of the reason why I think, not all white people, but there are a lot of white people who are gonna, more likely to empathize with her than, like, let's say if she was like, a homeless black American man who's like maybe behind on child support, or let's say if she was like a Somali immigrant,
Yes,
or
actually,
yeah.
I did want to touch on that stuff because leading up to ICE showing up in Minneapolis was all this like very idiotic, this like right-wing media virality thing of, and thinking about just how insane it is that just these random white people would show up to a daycare and just be like, where are the kids at? Like, I want to see them kids. Like, you can't do that. There's you're not allowed to do that. And
people, yeah. I mean, sorry to cut you off, but like, I mean, as a teacher, you can't just go up on like a school facility just unannounced, and also with fucking cameras asking to see. Like, people are going to be like, who the hell are you? Because either a daycare center or any institution where you're dealing with young children, like, people are going to be like, okay, who are you? Like, is there a reason why you
yeah, I mean, there are laws about this stuff.
Yeah, there are laws. Like, are you a parent? Like for example, let's say if a parent, let's say if there's a parent who, let's say that they lose the rights to their child. Or let's say the parent has like, if there's like a restraining order, the school can't let that parent on campus to see their kid. Even if it's their kid. If there's like a restraining order, or if the parent loses custody to their own kid, like, schools aren't gonna, because I've seen that shit happen. Like, yeah, we're not gonna allow this person to come on the school. So this person is clearly not a parent, has a camera crew, yeah, they're gonna be like, okay, we're not gonna let this person in. This is weird. Like, if you're a teacher, like, yeah, come on in. Or if you're a staff, but like, if you're fucking having all kinds of cameras and shit, fucking looks fucking weird. So yeah, yeah.
And also seems a little I won't say ironic. I find it interesting, let's say, that these are also like the QAnon people who are like obsessed with pedophiles. And it's like you're literally showing up to random places like demanding access to children, that and nobody knows you. It hit me a little bit harder because you know, Columbus, Ohio, my hometown, also has a very large Somali population, and they're doing that shit there too, including because I saw the video and I was like, well, this is just some random white guy, and then I discovered it was John Rocker, who is a famous former relief pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, um, and uh, back when the Braves were playing the Mets in 1999, he did this interview where he talked about how much he hated New York because of all the queers and all the immigrants, and now he's become just like a straight up Nazi. I mean, I don't know if he became that or maybe he already was, but he was doing this. He was like knocking on random people's doors and like trying to see the kids, and it's like this was the thing that started it, and then they're like, oh, there's massive daycare fraud. I mean, I guess they gotta claw the narrative back because you know, indiscriminate murder, like it plays well to the base, but not to the doesn't win over the inner ring suburbs that are so important, and those are the people that are shook by the idea that one of theirs could be killed too. Um, but yeah, like, and it's like I follow like these Midwest meme pages, and there's just this horde of people that like show up like not like when something about Minnesota gets mentioned now, they're like, oh, Somalia, and they have this whole conspiracy thing about how Minnesota changed its flag and it looks more like the Somalian flag because it's like blue and white and there's a star in it, and they're like, look what's happened. They're being taken, and Somalis are they're the twofer in the Nazi imagination because they're African and they're Muslim.
Yeah.
Oh my God, and I mean, it's ridiculous because it's like overall, they're quite pleasant, like they're really like kind of a success story in, America, not to do model minority shit or whatever, but it's like they're really it's such a you really do tell on yourself when you obsess about the Somalis because it's like, first of all, you're not in those areas where they are, and second of all, like they're not doing anything. But yes, that's just part of the insanity that the right wing is operating in.
Yeah, and to touch, I'll just wrap up touching your point about Somalia, and then I think that would be a good way to transition to the foreign policy stuff we have on the docket to discuss. Because I think, like, if you think about it, most people's probably when they think of Somalis, probably, I mean, if they're old enough to remember this movie, the movie Black Hawk Down. That's probably like their image, or was it Captain Phillips? There you go. The film with I think it was Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
About the pirates.
Yeah, pirates. So the image of Somalis in the U.S.
A lot of piracy going on in Minnesota.
Yeah, so it's like Somali pirates or Black Hawk Down. I actually want to watch the movie Tears of the Sun, that starred Bruce Willis, directed by Antoine Fuqua. I want to watch that movie and like do a review of it for the podcast. Maybe make it a bonus episode. But I've seen some clips of it. But basically, it's about like the Navy SEALs go on a rescue mission, and it's a fictitious war of. It's based on the Biafra War in Nigeria from 1967 to 1970. So the movie's not based on the actual war. It's like a 21st century version of that war. But Bruce Willis leads like a small team of Navy SEALs to rescue a U.S. citizen, a doctor who is doing like humanitarian work in Nigeria. So I think like it's something I've been thinking about, and I want to dig into it, follow up on it, particularly for this podcast. Is that I think a lot of times when Africa is depicted in American pop culture or even in politics, it's usually like if Westerners are in Africa, it's to do something good. Like we have to help the people of Africa because like there's starving children. Okay, there's like like especially what was it, those fucking TV commercials that came out in like the 90s and the 2000s. It's like save a child, and maybe have like a fucking a small African child who's like emaciated with like their belly sticking out and flies around them, and it'd be like, children are starving in Ethiopia and Africa. Donate money to blah 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 charity so you can adopt a child from Africa, or donate to aid and blah 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 and blah 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 blah. You can be good and save the children of Africa, okay? And I think that's like when people probably think of Somalia, it's through that similar prism that, oh, Somalia is like fucking pirates, it's all bad, it's like just dangerous over there, like, oh my gosh, it's all Black Hawk Down, and like, the people who come here, like, they're just, we don't know about them, we don't know, but like, if we go to Africa, we have to save them, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, like the image of Africa and Africans in the U.S. and the West is so fucking cartoonish. In the same way that, like, to be honest, the image of Black Americans overseas, even in Africa, is based on like really fucking stupid, over the top stereotypes of like Black Americans are a bunch of welfare queens and single mothers and baby mamas and like ghetto rat shit. And blah, blah, like, so yeah, on both ends, like, there's propaganda about continental Africans and Black Americans. And unfortunately, like, yeah, people of African descent on both sides of the diaspora wind up internalizing those stereotypes about other Black people of the diaspora. Like, like there are Black people who, because, they don't know much about Africa either. So they're like, oh, Africa is just like Hudson shit. And then there are some continental Africans who are like, wait, are Black Americans, are they all like on fucking crack and, blah, 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 blah. Like, why won't they pull up their pants? So like, yeah, on both ends of the diaspora were like propagandized. But what you're saying, Peter, about like, that controversy, because it was alleged that there was fraud, that these daycare centers were sites of fraud by Somalis, and it turns out like that story was BS. Like there were investigations, I think like in 2022. Well, actually, some of the real fraud was from like some white woman, I think a couple of years ago, if I remember correctly. But they were trying to say that like the Somalis are trying to defraud the American government. But like, look, there's all kinds of fraud in, welfare programs, but it's not like immigrants aren't the source of that problem. Like, there's all kinds of weird fraud. But yeah, that was the reason why, like, that guy, he's some YouTuber or something, some right-wing YouTuber who was like, we need to see if, like, there's fraud going on. But it turns out that daycare center did have children.
It's also
so
like, it makes no sense that you would just, like, rent a space and then just like say it's and then just like then no one's doing anything. Like it makes absolutely no sense. But it's not about making sense to the rational mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's about feeding a narrative that these the Somali immigrants are shifty.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that like in many ways, like I feel like the Midwest is kind of the battleground for fascism, because like you have, diverse areas. It's the Midwest is pretty diverse, in the cities at least, but economically depressed in many ways still. And there are some good, parts of its history, but it also very much like Midwestern racism, I think, has a sense of moral superiority around it that like that they don't really have in the South, because in the South I feel like they understand how dirty it is, but what are you gonna do? They like in the Midwest it very much feels like this is like lawful and correct. And so I do find that like it's a place where, yeah, it's definitely a battleground for a lot of these political fights. But yes, I think like the re I think the reason I wanted to record again is
Mm.
because like when we recorded last time, sort of the initial shock of the capture of Maduro
Yeah.
was
So now
still,
we're shifting. Yeah, it's
yeah.
Venezuela. Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Um, the initial shock was still ringing in my ears at the time, and I wasn't sure what it was gonna mean, and I don't think anyone knew what it was gonna mean, and now it's just like 2 weeks later, it's just like the same, like it wasn't regime change. It's like because America is like so washed that it can't even do regime change in Latin America anymore. That's how washed this empire is, really. I mean, yeah, they can pull off some cool Delta Force shit. Like the thing about an empire is like even when it's washed, like the military part of it, it can still rally and still do sick imperialism. But then it was just like, the the new president, she's gonna play ball. Over like it doesn't even make sense what it is that they're doing. I think all as much as these coke-addled Nazis can comprehend is just we don't want the oil to go to China, it's going here, but like the oil companies, like they don't need, we have enough oil. Like it's not in the sense like we want, there need, like the oil in Venezuela is going to be brought online and into market because the infrastructure is severely degraded because of decades of sanctions. Um, and if you think about it, like a refinery, like that kind of machinery is it's not easy to replace those parts, and that's the kind of thing that sanctions can really severely impact because you're very limited in your ability to upgrade infrastructure if you can't build your own refineries, which I think most petroleum exporting countries don't. So like the technical know-how and such. So the oil conglomerates, they're not really like on board, um, because it's gonna take hundreds of billions of dollars to get Venezuela's oil industry to you know ship shape. And then but then also, right, you know, immediately after they're like, oh, who's up next? Like we'll do it again. Don't we just snatch dictators. That's what America does now. Like it became clear that this is not the kind of thing they can do every week. It became, you know, they were able to, penetrate Venezuelan intelligence, which or American intelligence was able to penetrate high levels of the Venezuelan government, which no surprise. I mean, like over years, like every government that is like that is an enemy to the United States or its allies is gonna like have significant infiltration. It's kind of, there's only so much you can do about it. Um, but it's not, I mean, it's almost interesting that like they haven't been able to do something like this to Cuba, and maybe that is like what an actual violent revolution will get you is like, actual security, because you would think that like they would have been able to do something like this, but they. I guess the Cuban security apparatus is a little more airtight. What it really kind of struck me is like it's almost like the Israelification of the American military is like what the whole operation struck me as, because like the way Israel operates with its enemies overall is that like it doesn't actually, it's not like gonna go in there and do regime change really, except in Syria. Um, well, that was literally decades in the making, But what they like to do is just like this outstanding, like supreme act of violence that like violates all the norms, But it doesn't really ultimately change the status quo, because Israel wants to maintain it. Israel's doing fine with the status quo. Um, they like it, It works for them. And so it doesn't, it seems like the American playbook has become restricted, and now we're becoming more Israel-like in our own actions.
Yeah. Hold on, I had something to say about Venezuela. I mean, well, oh, I actually want to give like an update on because I don't think we mentioned the the death toll in Venezuela
Oh
because
yes, yes. I mean, it's a real Call of Duty level type thing. Like,
yeah, because it was well, some people are like, oh, this is a very surgical operation. Well, somewhere between 75 to 100 people were killed. Um, most of those were members of the security forces, and um, 32 Cubans were killed, and they were uh, Cuban special forces who were uh, basically protecting, I believe, protecting Maduro. Um, but yeah, I have a in one of my solo episodes. Just gonna give a shameless plug there that I'm gonna record. Um, I'm gonna do like a deep dive in terms of the mm, like basically the continuity from the war on terror to Venezuela. But what I'll just say here is like give like a Reader's Digest, and then if you want a deeper dive, you can listen to that episode. But basically, my overall thoughts on Venezuela is that basically, well, the continuity was basically the war on terror basically declared this global war on terrorist organizations. And it gave the U.S. government, particularly the executive branch, this wide ranging power, this almost blank check to use military force around the world against suspected terrorists. So, by Trump designating drug cartels as terrorist groups, Trump has been using this as a way to expand the use of military force in the Western Hemisphere against suspected, you know, drug cartels. So even before, like, because we didn't talk a lot about, but it's actually worth mentioning here. The U.S. military strikes against the boats in the Caribbean before this before the military, the U.S. military intervention that that basically kidnapped Maduro, because there were a lot of uh a lot of boats that were, the U.S. military was just bombing these boats that it suspected of trafficking drugs, which like the evidence for it was fucking flimsy, but like they're basically both civilians. Um, and according to Nick Turse in the Intercept, there have been around 123 people. Yeah, 123 people killed in these U.S. military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean. So yeah, like I believe it was like last fall, since September. Yeah. Apparently, there have been a total of 35 what are called kinetic strikes, basically these military strikes against these small boats in the Caribbean, leading to 123 deaths. And like whether these people, I mean, there's no evidence that these boats were fucking like trafficking drugs. Um, and in another article by Nick Turse in the Intercept, uh, the U.S. military killed survivors in the boats for not surrendering correctly. So, yeah, these strikes were happening before Maduro was kidnapped. So, um, I mean, well, going back to our early episode, what we were saying was that what I mentioned was the Monroe Doctrine. So basically, the Trump administration is focusing more on deepening U.S. hegemony in Latin America and the Caribbean, and basically just claiming outright that the Western Hemisphere belongs to the United States, and all the resources in the Western Hemisphere belong to the United States. So, um, those are my thoughts on Venezuela. Do you have any other thoughts on Venezuela? But I just wanted to give that Reader's Digest to kind of give a teaser for my upcoming solo episode where I dive further in. But basically, my point is that I see what's going on in Venezuela as there's continuity from the war on terror to now, and that with uh particularly during the Obama administration with the drone strikes that Obama did, the where he authorized these extrajudicial killings against suspected terrorists around the world via drone strike, most of whom were civilians, and the intelligence to gather is mostly based on cell phone metadata. So, um, the evidence to determine that these people were terrorists is pretty fucking flimsy. But there are a lot of civilian deaths as a result of Obama's drone strike program. I see a through line from the U.S. war on terror to what's going on right now with the Trump administration, because it seems like the U.S. war on terror has pretty much ended with Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan, and so we are in a new phase with the U.S. war machine, which is the Trump's administration's quote unquote Donroe Doctrine, the Donald Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. So that's my overall take on Venezuela, which again in my solo episode I'm gonna dive further into do a deeper dive on the kind of legal stuff and yada yada yada. But yeah, I think there's continuity from like anything with foreign policy. There's continuity from administration to administration.
Yeah, certainly it's the same sort of system of violence. I just wanted to also fucking Maria Corina Machado traveled. She goes to the White House to give Trump her Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh God, talk about
that. I just want to reiterate, because the biggest thing, even if you think Maduro's the worst leader of all time, the reason why he hung in there so long is just how fucking clownish the opposition is. The Venezuelan opposition is so D team. Like that, like she did all of that, and she's still never gonna be president. They don't care. Like the oil thing, I really do think it's just like that's as much as Trump can think about. Like he actually can't wrap his head around regime change, or any of the other stuff that America likes to do. Like it's just too much. It's too hard for him to think about all the ins and outs because there's a lot of nuance to regime change. But he understands oil and he understands that like his corporate buddies, that's what they want, and so that's why it's just like, yeah, oh, I'm taking the oil. Isn't that what you wanted me to do? But yeah, of course, as that was going on, more roided up and coked out, they, somebody started some protests in Iran, which
Yep.
I just wanted to speak on it briefly because, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest supporter of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I think it's a little more complicated than many people say, but you know, my ideal government or whatever. That's not, you know, they're not a left wing government, and they say they are resisting Israel, but I wish that kind of the amount of smoke that they had crushing the protest, they had that for Israel, and that would be refreshing. But um, these protests, like it was just very odd to watch it play out on like social media and like in on the AP Newswire because it really almost felt like people were just recycling scripts that they've heard about, like, oh, it's a color revolution in Iran. And I was like, all right, you you know we've been through this a few times before where something happens. And also, I mean, the amount of times that there are protest movements in Iran, it might just say that maybe it's there's a little more political diversity than one might think. But uh, they were escalating, and but it got a little bit weird. Like I was reading like an AP article about it, and usually when AP articles cover protests, they never talk about what was being chanted as though that's supposed to mean something. But they're like, chants at the demonstration have called for the return of the Shah. I was like, oh, come on. This now you guys are being too obvious. You overplayed your hand like too much. And then like literally Israeli media, like I think you found the article out of where it's like Israeli media was admitting that they were like arming protesters, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
when you say it like that, like what do you expect the Iranian government to do?
Yeah. I'll read from the article. It's this article came out a couple of days ago. The headline in Al Jazeera: Iran accuses foreign intelligence of being behind protest movement. Now, obviously, like, yeah, if it's coming from like the Iranian state, they have like their own, obviously their own motives, right? But in this is from okay, a couple. I'm reading from the Al Jazeera article. Um, The prospect of direct foreign intervention in support of Iran's protesters appears to be growing daily, with U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly signaling a readiness to attack. In Israel, far-right Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu told Army Radio last week, "When we attacked in Iran during Rising Lion, Israel's June attack on Iran," so that's basically the attack in June, we were on its soil and knew how to lay the groundwork for a strike. I can assure you that we have some of our people operating there right now," stopping short of claiming that Israeli agents were seeking regime change. In Israel's pro-Netanyahu Channel 14 reported on Tuesday that foreign agents were behind the arming of protesters in Iran, leading to the deaths of members of the security forces. Writing on social media earlier this month, former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he was Secretary of State under Trump, and by the way, Mike Pompeo, he himself
Went on Ozempic.
yeah, well, he also over him and Gina Haspel, what the fuck, they oversaw the torture of people during the Bush administration. So yeah, so that's Mike Pompeo's. Uh, you know, that's his like fucking brilliant record. But anyway, in the article it says, yeah, former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was also a former director of the CIA. There you go. Yep, did acknowledge the presence of Israeli agents operating on the ground in Iran, wishing Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. I mean, like, why the fuck would made it that fucking obvious? Like, Jesus Christ! Like, usually these people are more, measured. They're a little more hush hush with this stuff. But like, no, they don't. They don't care. So yeah, they're saying it openly that uh yeah, they you know the empire the emperor has no fucking clothes and is not giving a shit about
mask off and clothes off. Dicks out for imperialism. Maybe that'll be the title of the episode.
That'll
get age restricted for sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah, and guys, like, if you want like more, again, we don't censor ourselves, but but yeah, please subscribe to us on YouTube because they won't take our video down, but like there will be like age restriction, which when I've uploaded our videos on YouTube, like I didn't put it on the whatchamacallit, the for kids setting. So I thought it was weird that they age restricted because like when I put the setting on there, I was like, I didn't put that our content was for kids. So, but even the subject matter that we talk about, yeah, YouTube has done that to other channels. So please, yeah, if you want more, just support what we're doing. Just become a subscriber, especially if you're listening on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, go to our YouTube channel and just fucking subscribe. So and also support us on Patreon as well. So,
mid episode plug.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean maybe they're trying to do 11th dimensional chess, but it's really not that. We're gonna claim like that's giving Narco Rubio and alcoholic commander-in-chief Barbara War, worst Peter on earth. It's giving them way too much credit. Like they were just like the fall of the Iranian regime is like, and this actually really does underscore your point about like the continuity of the war on terror, because like neoconservatism is back, baby. And that's their final dream, is like, carrying out the Zionist foreign policy of like, well, if you just get rid of Iran, then Israel will have no enemies and it's free to expand and pursue Eretz Israel and take over the entire Middle East. If you just got to get rid of Iran. And the thing is that Iran certainly has political fissures and fractures. And like sanctions have certainly hurt the country, and people are having a hard time. And an actual social revolution would be pretty cool. I would support that. But the thing about it is, like, if there's an actual social revolution in Iran, what comes out of it is not going to be like pro-Western and pro-Israel. It's going to be, they're gonna finally get the damn nukes, which they deserve to have, to get the U.S. and Israel to stop fucking with them. But yeah, it was just very, like, very odd how, just how roided up and coked out everyone was, and how they were sure this was gonna, like, that's the thing that kind of got me about the Venezuela thing. Is like, U.S. pulls off literally one thing, like, since the fucking Persian Gulf War, that isn't a total disaster, and they're like, yeah, we're so back, America's so back, everybody watch the fuck out. And it's like, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And and another delusional thing. You say you have some thoughts about taking Greenland.
Oh yeah, uh, yeah. Yeah. I do have a lot of thoughts on that about the U.S. wanting to take fucking Greenland. Uh, yeah. I mean, well, this is like okay. Trump will say like outrageous shit, and then he just does it, right? Because at first, when Trump was saying that the U.S. wants to take Greenland, he was saying that like last year. People were like, "What the fuck? Is this guy crazy?" And then now it seems like he's really fucking serious about it. To the point where our now Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is suggesting that America buy Greenland, uh, purchase it. But yeah, Trump. I think Trump really believes in this about taking Greenland because Trump sees. I mean, Trump sees real estate. So I think like when it comes to American empire, I think with Trump, his motivation, he sees prime real estate and he just wants to fucking take and annex Greenland. Now, if you look at Greenland on a map, right? If you look at I have a world map behind me in my room. Greenland technically is in the Western Hemisphere and part of the North American continent, but it is part of Europe. So it's part of the Kingdom of Denmark. So it's been a colony of Denmark since 1721. So there were originally the Norse who settled in Greenland, and then it was the Danish. So it's been a colony of Denmark since 1721. The 1721. Yeah, Denmark's been Greenland has been a colony of Denmark since 1721. The U.S. also has a military base in Denmark as well. And I've been following like the European perspective on it, and they're really pissed off about this because from Europe's perspective, they're like, if you want to use Greenland for military purposes, you can just ask. Like, you don't have to take it. Like, you have a base there. If you want to like expand more, like,
Yeah,
it's okay. Because
they don't even really have to ask, actually. Like,
yeah. Like, I mean,
just
it's
show up.
yeah, and like this is a NATO ally. Now here's the irony: is that like this is threatening to basically break up NATO. And you know what's interesting? Like I don't really care about NATO that much. Like I mean, if you think about it, like why the fuck do we still have NATO? Like it, because I think the only reason why you would still have NATO is really just an appendage of the U.S. empire. That's really all it is. European countries are just vassal states of the U.S. And even when European leaders talk about Trump's U.S., like they're afraid. The European heads of state are really afraid of going against the United States and Trump. Meanwhile, the people of Greenland and people in Denmark, they're protesting against it. Polling has showed that nearly 70% of Americans oppose annexing Greenland. And somewhere nearly like 50% of Americans support abolishing ICE. And like that's the weird thing is that I don't really care about NATO. Just that whole thing, like, what's the point of having NATO? Like, because it's
the anti-Russia group.
Exactly, that's all it is. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why NATO exists. Is basically it is there as an alliance against Russia, that is pretty much how it got its start. during the Cold War. Russia disbanded the Warsaw Pact, but NATO was never disbanded. If anything, it expanded. It grew. So
after we pinky swear that we wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. So I don't have any particular affinity for NATO. However, I do think Greenland belongs to the indigenous people of Greenland. I don't even personally, I don't even think that Greenland should be a colony of Denmark. Like, it should just be its own country. Like, so I don't think America should annex Greenland, and I don't understand like why Denmark needs Greenland. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's because if you look at a map, you look at Denmark. Greenland is really far from Denmark. If you look at it, Greenland is closer to Iceland. Like, they're much closer together. If Iceland wanted to say like, hey, we're, Greenland is part of us, or if they had some kind of alliance, that would make more sense because they're closer to each other. But yeah, Greenland is pretty far from Denmark. So I don't know. Like, so my hot take is that I think Greenland they should be independent. They shouldn't be a colony of anybody. I'm in favor of national sovereignty for Greenland. But I think the reason why the Trump administration is hell bent on annexing Greenland, even though I think it's probably one of the stupidest things to call for, but there is a reason for it. Greenland has rare earth minerals, and also this is something really fucked up. Climate change, because it's been melting a lot of the ice in both the far north and the far south, near the North Pole and the South Pole. A lot of that ice is melting thanks to fucking, carbon emissions caused by humans and so there's melted ice in Greenland, and it's opening up sea lanes. So that's pretty strategic for U.S. imperial interests, particularly to counter Russia. So I think those are two reasons why that the Trump administration is also hell bent on Greenland. One, the rare earth minerals that are like rare earth minerals. I think for this century going forward is going to be as vital as oil. So controlling oil, and then now rare earth minerals that are needed for electronics, basically a lot of electronics that we use day to day. There's rare earth minerals in Greenland and a lot of other countries. But again, China really controls, like, China has really finessed the processing and manufacturing of rare earth minerals, because it's one thing to dig up the rare earth minerals, but you need to convert those rare earth minerals into electronic, the things we need to use for the technology we have today. So, that's pretty much what I have to say about Greenland. But I do think Trump is serious about this. We'll see like what's gonna happen as a result of it, because people in Europe are pretty pissed about this. Because I think, like, even just listening to LBC, I listen to them quite often. I think among Europeans, what I'm noticing is that there's some interesting kind of nationalism that's going on in European countries, basically questioning Europe's alliance with the United States, and should Europe have its own independent foreign policy from the United States? Like, why is Europe's interest in foreign policy so deeply tied to the United States?
I mean, we know the reason, but
yeah.
They
but
can't
but
get out from under it yet.
yeah, but I think like the Trump saying he wants to annex Greenland is pissing a lot of Europeans off, and it's raising these interesting questions about the alliance between the United States and European countries, like the European Union. So that's something I still want to follow. Like what's going to happen as a result of that? Like, will this break NATO apart? I don't know if it. To be honest, like just thinking off the top of my head, I don't. I feel. I think a lot of European heads of states are too like chicken shit to.
I mean,
Uh,
that the safe bet is that Europe will just roll over and take it. But
yeah.
there were I will say that I have a pretty significant antipathy towards NATO, and I think the world would be significantly better off if it didn't exist. That said, can't support new settler colonialism. It is the whole thing is very strange. Sometimes I'm like, would I move to Greenland? If it like, is this going to solve the affordability crisis? And they're going to be like, all right, well, you know what? You want cheap housing? It's in Greenland. If that, it's like typical American expansion. I think it's just like Trump's mad he missed out on all the expansionist fund as president. I think it started weirdly like he was hung up on the Danish prime minister back in the first term, and now he's like hell bent on it. But it is, and also just like America wants to be bigger. Like looking at the countries by landmass, like I find it very funny because it's like 3/4 is U.S. and China, and it's like we can't even really admit that China is bigger than us. We just can't admit. So we need something to prove it and be bigger than Canada. How is Canada number two? That's not right. This is America. I mean, we can't be bigger than Russia, unfortunately. But yeah, it like yes, new settler colonialism just dropped. Uh, like I don't, I don't know. We really probably might. I do think it would significantly just like uh it would mess up a lot of things about NATO, like legally. I think that it probably would like um it might significantly hamper, or they might just be like, we've got a new thing. Well, like they got rid of NAFTA and replaced it with new NAFTA, but just called it something different. So they might get rid of NATO and then just make something that's like more U.S. hegemonic or something. I mean, I think that's too much of a heavy lift for the geniuses in the State Department. Like, we can't really do that kind of like actual diplomacy anymore. So that sense probably not. But Adam, you are definitely completely right about the Northwest Passage, which back in the 19th century, the idea of finding a Northwest Passage was huge. I took a polar exploration class in freshman year of college, so that's why I know this. But the idea that you could like basically not have to go all the way around South America before the Panama Canal was built, that you could go from Asia to Europe, like over the north of North America, would have been huge. If it was at all like people, the British especially, spent a lot of expeditions trying to find that, and they couldn't find it because it was, yes, covered in ice. But climate change might open up the Northwest Passage, and Russia would stand to benefit from that the most. So I can see why we would now deem it like a national security interest to need Greenland so we can control the Northwest Passage. Because I guess climate change imperialism is definitely coming down the pipeline. So that is probably like the actual real politic thinking behind it. I think it is just like silly enough that people don't take it seriously, but $700 billion is Just think about that for a second. The amount of shit that doesn't work in this fucking country that $700 billion could fix. And we just want to spend it on buying fucking Greenland. Like, it's fucking ridiculous, you know? But I guess if it destroys NATO. But yes, you know, yes, Greenland should be independent. And, you know, back in the day, back in the Teddy Roosevelt era, in the era of imperialism Trump longs for, like the U.S. was functional enough that they would like start an independence movement, like they did in Panama, and then encourage Greenland to secede first, and then take it over. You don't do it first and then like, oh, what? You guys don't like this? Like, you guys don't want to be Americans? Who wouldn't want to be
Yeah,
American?
I saw this. I often watch Hassan Piker's stream, and he was talking about Greenland, and there was this interview with a Greenlander woman, and she was saying like, we're clearly not white, and Hassan was like, oh, that's the wrong thing to say. Because it was going to register, and he had a point. Because like, what's going to register in like the MAGA chud minds that, oh, there's people of color in this place. Fuck them. Like we have to bomb them.
Yeah.
Like
No, they're looking for new Indians to kill, man. They're so sad.
yeah,
They missed out on the fun. So yeah, there's certainly some people that are looking at it that way.
yeah, because yeah, it's an okay, yeah, because Greenland is an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, but like it's still part of Denmark, and it's like it should just be its own. It should be its own fucking country. But yeah, so like actually, here's some facts. Some facts about Greenland. I'm looking at the Wikipedia, but its population is 56,000 people, like over 56,000 people, and Greenlandic Inuit people. So the Inuit people are the indigenous people to Greenland. So, and if you look at Inuit people, they are clearly not white. They look, they look like, if you look at them, they look like the Inuit people of northern Canada. Because I mean, if you look at a map of Greenland, like that's where they're located. They're very fucking close to, the very far like northern Canada, like where the Inuit people. So yeah, Greenlandic Inuit are they are the majority population of Greenland, like 85 to 90% of the population of over 56,000 people who live in Greenland. And so, yeah, I think within the MAGA chud mind, they're like, oh, because, who was it? That fucking guy. Oh, Andrew Tate. God. I mean, I don't think I think more people need to call him a house Negro, because he really is like fucking, he was like, yeah, we have to invade Greenland. We have to tear operate. Like, he has this fucking stupid. It's like a bastard.
What he's gonna do it from a Romanian prison? Like,
right? Yeah, he has like this bastard British accent. He's like, we're gonna fucking invade Greenland. He was making fun of the Inuit people. It's like, dude, you're half black. What the fuck? But yeah, he's gonna do it from like his fucking being under his prison in Romania. Yeah, he's really gonna do that. Like, after he's got his fucking ass kicked in that boxing fight, he got knocked out. Like, he got beat up and lost. Yeah, he's gonna be the one to like fucking invade Greenland. But I think within like the MAGA chud racist mind, yeah, they're gonna see the people of Greenland and be like, "Yay, there's another group of brown people we get to conquer." I mean, it's so fucking stupid, this idea of America annex Greenland, because, like, obviously, yeah, there's the geostrategic reasons, the rare earth minerals and the Northwest Passage. Like when I was reading some articles, that's what popped out. Like, oh, fuck, climate change is so fucking bad that it's melted some of the ice. It makes a Northwest Passage actually possible. And that would be crucial for like that would actually have some real national security implications. Especially if the United States has a base in Greenland. Which, yeah, the United States already has a base in Greenland. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about Greenland. Do you have anything else to say? Otherwise, we can shift to the last.
It's really cold. Like I just don't know who you're gonna get. I mean, no. See, this is the thing where it's like it is easy to make jokes, but like you really shouldn't be like, yeah, no, send all the Trump supporters to Greenland. That sounds, but like you actually no, like this is not like stop like I think it's just proof that like America it never stopped doing settler colonialism. Like, it's still like fundamentally the basis of the American identity over everything else. And so, of course, part of making America great again is like doing new settler colonialism. So, uh, it not needs to not do that. You know. Ugh. But yes, we got an article, and then
Yeah, this is something I wanted to discuss with you, Peter, rather than talk about it myself in a solo episode. But there's this article in the Nation magazine called "The Congressional Black Caucus's Silent Partnership with AIPAC," and I wanted to mention it in context of Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who she's come under criticism from segments of the left for her support of Israel. I mean, she's not like a diehard Zionist, but she's taken the mainstream Democratic Party line of just
the reason she's getting a lot of attention because she's running for Senate in Texas.
Yeah, she's running for Senate in Texas, so it's her and this other guy, James Tallarico, who are both running. And
But,
go ahead.
Oh, for the people who think that like all of racial justice is drawn out in identity politics and congressional races, this is their Super Bowl. They are so hyped up for this. I mean, Jasmine Crockett is honestly probably one of the hate the phrase rising stars, but of the few that there are in the Democratic Party, she is one, and I will say like she does pretty well in the media. Like she definitely has the quips, and
Yeah.
I don't really know what else she does. You don't really have to do much else in Congress. Like that is basically all that anyone does. So I get that people who the Democratic dead enders in the Democratic Party will follow that party off a fucking cliff are very excited about this. I mean, look, Texas is not going to have any Democratic senator probably for the rest of this century. The entire Republican Party project rests on Texas being red forever at this point. So I don't know what you guys say about that. I lived down there for a while. It's Texas. I don't have enough bad things to say about Texas, but leave that for another time. But yes, that is why she's in the media right now. And anyone who isn't like already signing up to Phone Bank is doing so out of misogynoir.
Well, actually, speaking of that, Matt Rogers and Bowen Yang basically told their audience to not donate to Jasmine Crockett, mainly because they didn't think she stood a chance, and so they got criticized for that, and they had to walk back their comment. But I mean, when I think of Jasmine Crockett, and the reason why I'm bringing up this article, I'm just reminded of some of the Obama years, where any criticism of Obama like the left was seen as, oh, you're just racist or you're blah 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 blah. I, being black, didn't get that criticism, but I do, looking back at that time, a lot of black people who were very much in lockstep with Obama, which was a lot of black people. Let's just keep that in mind. When it came to black critics of the left, I mean, we're kind of like, they didn't really want to pay attention to what we said, but I'm just I feel like I'm seeing the same thing from that time now with Jasmine Crockett. It's like the same arguments, like, okay, whatever. But anyway, she recently voted for Senate Bill HR 7006, which included $3.3 billion in military aid to Israel and cutting U.S. funding to the ICC, ICJ, and the UN Commission on Inquiry related to Israel. So a lot of liberals want to whitewash that, and that's why I thought this article would be good to discuss and close us out with. So again, this article in the Nation magazine came out in October 15th, 2025. Yeah, the headline is the Congressional Black Caucus's silent partnership with AIPAC. And I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'll read a couple passages that have to relate with the CBC. So it says, yet to this day, the Congressional Black Caucus, the long-standing core of lawmakers dedicated to safeguarding civil rights and known as the Conscience of Congress, has not issued a formal declaration condemning Israel. It hasn't even produced a statement calling for a ceasefire. The CBC's silence isn't accidental. More than half of its current 61 members have been endorsed or fully funded by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the powerful U.S. lobbying arm for Israel's agenda. In the 2023-2024 election cycle alone, AIPAC endorsed 26 of the caucus's members, raising $4.6 million for them and another $3.5 million for black Democratic candidates. By accepting AIPAC's endorsements and money, CBC members are, to use a biblical turn of phrase, selling their birthright for a mess of pottage. AIPAC readily sets aside the political concerns of the CBC in its efforts, spending lavishly on campaigns for GOP members of Congress targeting measures on racial equality, which totaled more than $17 million in the 2023-24 cycle. AIPAC has one purpose: defending Israel at all costs. This single issue litmus test means that the CBC is now beholden to a group that is far more concerned with the state of Israel than it is with the caucus's core mission. And the CBC's resulting silence not only damages its credibility, but also jeopardizes its ability to advocate for the interests of black Americans, many of whom recognize an ethno-nationalist campaign to eliminate a people. One glaring example of this clash of interests is AIPAC's targeting of black lawmakers such as Cori Bush of Missouri, who lost her seat in 2024 for speaking out against Israel's crimes against humanity. This posture predates the start of the war on Gaza in 2023. During the 2022 midterms, AIPAC endorsed candidates with white supremacist views and Republicans who refused to affirm that Joe Biden had won the 2020 election. The group also targeted black Democratic lawmakers like Pennsylvania Representative Summer Lee, who spoke out against Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. This has been AIPAC's standard mode of intimidation in a political system ruled by money and the need to continually raise funds, a total of nearly $4 billion in the 2024 congressional cycle alone. Over that same period, more than 80% of lawmakers in Congress received money from AIPAC, what has rendered the Democratic Party such an impotent voice in combating the Gaza genocide, in other words, is a matter of fundraising math. A single-issue lobby reliant on strong financial backing from GOP donors has successfully managed to keep Democratic critics of Israel out of Congress. Um, and they talk about Jamal Bowman here. In May 2023, while serving as Democratic representative from New York, Jamal Bowman co-sponsored a resolution seeking to ensure that U.S. funds to Israel would not be used to harm Palestinian children. This would seem an uncontroversial aim, but not for AIPAC and its allied PACs. Our ancestors were enslaved and endured the Black Code, Jim Crow, and housing discrimination, Bowman said in an interview with The Nation. As people who come from that, we have the moral authority to push back on AIPAC's agenda. We are against genocide. We are against the starvation of children. We are against harming innocent people in any context. But Bowman learned the cost of speaking truth to the spending power of AIPAC. When you go against one of their pieces of legislation, depending on what it is, they will email you, relentlessly call you, relentlessly protest outside your office, and stop you from even being able to do your job, he continued. And this coordinated campaign was merely a prelude. In the 2023-24 election cycle, AIPAC spent $100 million, much of it raised from Republican mega donors, targeting Democrats it seemed hostile to Israel. That included an unprecedented outlay of $15 million in a single House race by the group in a successful primary challenge against Bowman. He was replaced on the Democratic ticket by the AIPAC-endorsed former Westchester County Executive George Latimer, a white candidate with a record of racist remarks. So basically, yeah. So AIPAC has a more recent history of going after black politicians who are critical of Israel. So yeah, AIPAC is like used its money and political power to basically get them out of office. Progressive organizations urged Hakeem Jeffries, the CBC's highest-ranking member in the House of Representatives and the Democratic minority leader, to intervene against AIPAC's campaign to defeat House critics of Israel. But Jeffries and the CBC 7-person leadership team said nothing, as pro-Israel interests primaried its members. It's not hard to see why. Jeffries and every member of the current CBC leadership have received money from the pro-Israel lobby, and AIPAC is endorsing Jeffries as well as 5 of the 7 members of the CBC leadership in the upcoming 2026 midterms. Let's see. So I'm gonna keep reading, but this is one part where like I think it'd be good for the both of us to discuss. Blah blah blah. Oh yeah, AIPAC appeals to black candidates by exploiting the proud tradition of Jewish American support for the civil rights movement. But that display of moral and political solidarity was not a covenant with black Americans to turn a blind eye to apartheid or genocide. I've heard it before to my face, Bowman said. We were there for you. We were there for you during the civil rights movement. We were there for you during the Black Lives Matter movement. Be there for us. Okay. The Israel lobby's support for black lawmakers has always rested on their uncritical backing of Israel. On January 30th, 1972, Representative Charles Diggs, chair of what was then a 13-member caucus, announced plans for a national black political convention to take place March 10th to the 12th in Gary, Indiana, to identify and ratify a national black political agenda for 1972 and beyond. And this is also a plug for, our, let me see. So we did an episode on the Gary.
There was a documentary about it called Nation Time, which is amazing. It is highly recommended, and we watched it, and we did we talked about it that's a Patreon episode from a few years back, but I'm sure it still holds up. Also, just want to say, no, the fuck, Israel wasn't there during Black Lives Matter. In fact, the exact opposite. Like, from the outset, there was solidarity with Palestinians and Ferguson protesters, and they were like, like that was like a core tenet of the initial part of the movie. So that's just a straight up fucking lie. But hey, it's a fact.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I am. So it might be worth. Hold on. I am going to probably. I'll put a link to that bonus episode in the show notes, but in order to listen to it, you have to be a patron. So I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. Because, yeah, this part right here where they mentioned it was called the Gary Convention, 1972 Gary Convention. Yeah, we discussed it, and I thought it'd be good to follow up on that. So, but yeah, it's true. Like, a lot of Palestinians, they came out in total support of the Black Lives Matter protests for both waves. And by the way, yours truly, in 2014, I was a speaker at Loyola University in Chicago by the Students for Justice in Palestine chapter out there to speak about basically the connection between Israel's apartheid and police killings of black people. And I talked about that and my time at Guantanamo Bay. So that was in 2014, a while ago, like over 10 years ago. So yeah, Palestinians did show up for black people during Black Lives Matter to a much larger extent than the pro-Israel people. So definitely more so than AIPAC. And even as this article showed, AIPAC gave money to racist Republicans. So anyway, continuing, this article continues. More than 10,000 black Americans, black nationalists, intellectuals, civil rights groups, and the CBC met in Gary and published a 55-page national black agenda containing resolutions and recommendations for measures to promote black equality and racial justice. Debate swirled around several measures considered for the platform, including economic empowerment, the possible formation of a third party representing black Americans, and whether the agenda should endorse busing to achieve integration in public schools. But the contentious debate devolved into irreparable rupture when it came to the question of Israel and Palestine. Black nationalists demanded a resolution to cut U.S. aid to Israel, return Palestinian lands, and affirm Palestinian self-determination, but members of the CBC recoiled. Facing pressure from Jewish organizations, the CBC denounced the resolution, affirmed its support for Israel, and refused to endorse the national black agenda. Instead, the caucus drafted its own platform, which plotted a decidedly moderate course, especially in foreign policy. 1 year after its inception, the Congressional Black Caucus chose alliance with the Israel lobby over the support for Palestinians advocated by politically independent pro-black organizations. It's true that the Democratic Party writ large was fiercely pro-Israel throughout the post-war years. In fact, it was a Democrat, Senator Henry Scoop Jackson of Washington, who was a political godfather of the belligerently Zionist neoconservative movement. Yet, even in that context, the CBC's staunch support for Israel is striking, particularly given its self-appointed mission of serving as a conscience of Congress and its principled opposition to the Vietnam War. During Israel's successive military campaigns in the 1980s, including the invasion of Lebanon in 1982 and the suppression of the Palestinian Intifada in 1987, CBC members reliably voted to continue sending U.S. aid and military support to the Jewish state. After a 1987 U.S. State Department report found that Israel had violated the UN ban on providing arms to South Africa's apartheid regime, some CBC members did start to denounce in scathing terms America's lavish support for Israel and its status as the leading recipient of U.S. aid. In response, AIPAC brokered a deal with CBC leaders to prevent members of the caucus from singling out Israel for selling military assistance to South Africa on a regular basis. It keeps going on. So, anyway, it talks about oh, here's one. Okay, this is about a poll where Black Americans stand. Okay, here we go. This is toward the end of the article. The CBC claims the mantle of civil rights advocacy in Congress. On Palestine, however, where famine, displacement, and mass killing have earned the Gaza siege the designation of a genocide, it has largely been mute. This omission raises a pivotal question. Whose conscience does the CBC actually represent? Not that of black Americans who, according to survey data, sympathize with the Palestinians. A December 2023 Carnegie poll showed that 95% of black Americans rejected the idea of showing unwavering support for Israel. Black Americans disapprove of Benjamin Netanyahu at a higher rate than any other demographic voting bloc and believe by a 10% margin of the sample size that Israel's attack on Gaza are unjustified and harm too many innocent Palestinians. Nearly half of black Americans believe that Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people. A 2024 Carnegie poll showed that 68% of black Americans would have liked to see the United States call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. So, anyway, that's that Nation article. But my thoughts are, I mean, obviously, yeah, the CBC has not spoken out against or condemned Israel's genocide. But the two things I wanted to bring up. The first is that the Congressional Black Caucus, I think, is very much out of touch with Black America. And I would say that they're pretty irrelevant to the mainstream of Black Americans. Because really the Congressional Black Caucus, they are just a get out the vote machine for the Democratic Party. That a lot of these black politicians, they're just get out the vote operatives for the Democratic Party to basically to get black votes for the Democrats while demanding and getting nothing in return. So like Hakeem Jeffries, like he's just going lockstep with the pro-Israel lobby. Same with Jasmine Crockett as well. You know,
I do want to be clear. I don't believe Jasmine Crockett has taken AIPAC money.
No, she hasn't. I don't think she has.
Just to be clear, we're not saying that she has, because I know that was a big thing on Threads, but that it doesn't like negate the point that we're making.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for saying that, Peter, because she did recently, though, vote to give more military aid to Israel. And in interviews, when she's been questioned on Israel, she pretty much just takes the same line, which is basically America has a special relationship with Israel and I'm going to support Israel, blah, 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 blah. Even though she's not taking AIPAC money, and here's the thing, like the vast majority of American politicians, like they are pretty much lockstep in supporting Israel, even if maybe they may not take direct AIPAC money. You know, like they still toe the line because it means something for their political career. So, as this article pointed out, the black politicians who did speak out against Israel, AIPAC, you know, organized efforts to make them lose their seats. So, so yeah, we're not saying she took AIPAC money, but she's very much like lockstep in supporting Israel when it comes to votes and even public statements. That is a fact. But the Congressional Black Caucus, I think that they're pretty irrelevant. They're just part of the Democratic Party machine. And another reason why I wanted to mention that part about the Gary Convention is that I think the CBC, what was very revealing about that part in the article about the Gary Convention is that the CBC positioned itself as a more moderate end of black politics. That is, like, I think from the very beginning, the CBC had positioned itself from the more radical leftist and nationalist end of black politics. So when you look at the CBC from that perspective, their unyielding support for Israel, uh, it it's not completely surprising because the CBC was never that super radical to begin with. Even though like within Congress they positioned themselves as standing up in the civil rights tradition, the conscience of Congress. That's what they say about themselves. But I would say, like based on that article, I was really glad that it mentioned the CBC at the Gary Convention and where it ruptured from the black nationalists. That right there to me shows that from the very beginning, the Congressional Black Caucus has always positioned itself like as not the radical wing of black politics, as a more moderate wing. But they don't say that about themselves because it boosts their profile and their appeal to say that, oh, we are standing on the backs of the civil rights movement. But that's pretty much what I think about the CBC and why their support for Israel really shouldn't be surprising because they were never that radical to begin with. The more radical elements of black politics, which I think we're now seeing a resurgence of in recent years, because I would say definitely from like the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and the 2010s, black politics has like kind of been, muted. I mean, there was a Million Man March in the 90s, but like for the most part, like black politics, I said it in our earlier episode. I think probably one of our first episodes that black politics is dead.
Yeah, I
Basically,
think
like
that
there,
was the title of the first episode.
yeah, and that and is I think it's worth even revisiting it because I keep thinking about what I said. Basically, my point was that the reason why I said that black politics is dead is because so much of black politics gets sucked into the nonprofit industrial complex, corporate America, academia, and the Democratic Party. There isn't like a strong, well organized, like mass black grassroots politics. A lot of like the black organizing is kind of um, scattered. 'Cause I do think, like, I mean, I'm not saying Black America is not organized. It is organized, but it's not at the level it was compared to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Because I think it was easier to organize black people because during that time, because black Americans were segregated, so we were forced to be among each other because of segregation. But I think the organizational structure politically of Black America, so much of it has been sucked up by the Democratic Party machine, and that's the main reason why I said that Black politics is dead. But now I think Black America is starting to cleave off of that, and so the question for our community is organizing a new era of Black politics that is independent of the Democratic Party, the nonprofit industrial complex, corporate America, and academia. But yeah, that's what I want to say about the CBC. But like, I'm curious about your thoughts.
That's quite the list. That's the Lolita Express favorites. That contingent. Yeah, I will say that bringing it back to the National Political Convention really drives home, I think, a lot of points. One, that yeah, black radicalism has been out in front on Palestine, for 50 years before anyone. Because even, yes, in the 70s, like you could still be there was still a thing as like labor Zionism. You could convincingly be a leftist and be pro-Israel because it wasn't, I mean, it was still an apartheid occupation, you know, state, but it hadn't quite filtered through in that way, and like the Palestinian National Movement had, less of a good name around it. But, yeah, I know the Black Panthers especially were out in front pro-Palestine. And the fact that like, that because I don't think this was in the documentary about the the issue of Palestine. The fact that caused a rupture, and that the CBC like chose Zionism basically over political unity is very instructive, and I think there's a fair argument to make that institutions like the CBC, um, and some others, part of this sort of ossified black political class. I think there's an argument to be made that they're actually agents of neocolonialism, and I don't want dipshit white leftist listeners to have heard this and then go pop off and say stupid shit. But like for me personally, when I'm trying to like figure out like why the hell is this, like tradition that I, grew up around and was told like this is what it means. Why is it that when it actually comes time to do anything, that's not what's happening? Why is it that, something like universal health care and, in the Bernie Sanders campaign that is gets tagged as like, oh, this is racist or something, like it just doesn't connect with black people, you know. And I mean, the reasons kind of behind that are that a lot of people in this class, in this political class, are put there to be to tamp down on, black liberation movements and to, actively co-opt them or lead them astray. Like that, like there's a point at which some of these institutions do have to be called out as neocolonial. Um, I think you have to be very intentional and particular about uh, which ones you're calling out and, have the receipts for it. But it's not necessarily that hard to find. Uh, but I would say that like, they're still members of Congress first. Like, you're still part of the U.S. government and therefore on the hook for everything that the U.S. government does. Um, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It is just like it, yeah, it just kind of drives home that like this idea of like like the civil rights movement is really like the North Star in liberal ideology. It really was probably liberalism's finest moment in the sense that it was able to accomplish significant structural reform primarily through procedural means without violent resistance and didn't really threaten, anyone's capital. It is able
Yeah.
to do all of those things and, it got 50 years of moral superiority for it. Um, but it like the idea that like that means that like you have to support it, that like Zionism has anything to do with the black freedom struggle except as being an antagonist to it is just absurd. So yeah, uh, yes, I guess to reiterate my point, like it is when stuff like this comes out, like I would hope that you know, in black political media we're getting to a point where we can start calling this stuff out because yes, the reason that like, when Bernie went to South Carolina, he didn't know what happened to him. It's not just because, black voters just they don't like Bernie Sanders and they don't want socialism and whatever. It's that, there's patronage networks that go back decades that the Democratic establishment has already locked up. And when you say like that like you make a very good point about Black America is organized, but it's organized in a way that directs everything back to the Democratic Party. And
Yeah.
and when like the discussions of these white leftists, like they did this with the Zoran campaign for a while until it turned out like actually has quite significant black support, but it's coming back because of the deputy mayor thing, which I just want to say I don't even know what a deputy mayor is, and I don't think a lot of the people, especially who are attacking it from the right, know what a deputy mayor is either. So I just want to be clear about that. But the yeah, when it came like when this like white leftists just can't get support, because social democracy is a white idea or whatever, and it's like no, it's that it's that you're dealing with people who've already been bought. Like you're
Yeah.
dealing with institutions that have already been co-opted, and at some point they have to be called out and named about the obstacle role that they play in any amount of social progress, much less liberation.
Yeah. Oh man. Also with Zoran. Yeah. Black millennials were among his biggest supporters. So yeah, this idea that black people don't like social democracy is so white lefting. I am so like I said. I heard this shit. I've heard these fucking arguments during the Obama years because I'm gonna put this in the show notes and it might even be worth fucking bring it up in another episode. But I wrote a blog in 2013. The title of it was privileged white people are not the only ones concerned about war. Because I do remember there was leftists who were critical of Obama's drone strikes. They're painted as, that's just like a white bro thing. That's only what white bros are concerned about. You know, like, you guys are so out of touch with black people. Like, UK, come on. Yeah, we're hearing similar fucking arguments now to basically, try to malign any sort of politics that's left of center or like so. I'm just saying it because that argument isn't fucking new. I've heard it before. It's stupid and disingenuous. But I yeah, like I said, the one of the main things that struck me about reading that is just thinking about the trajectory of black politics since the civil rights movement. And yeah, to your point, Peter, the Civil Rights Act was probably one of the biggest triumphs of liberalism because you had major structural change within the system that did not involve massive redistribution of wealth, but it did produce some very real substantive structural change when it came to eliminating, not completely eliminating, but ending racial segregation and expanding rights for not just for black people. And I want to emphasize this. I think this is important. The Civil Rights Act did not just benefit black Americans. It had impact on ending gender discrimination, discrimination based on sexual orientation. Like it set a precedent for expanding the rights for other people who are not straight white men. And it also had an impact on the follow-up to that was a 1965 change in immigration law, which basically got rid of the racist quotas in immigration. So that's why since the late 60s, you've had more large numbers of non-white immigrants come to this country, which is that's something that the Trump administration wants to reverse with particularly with these ICE raids and kidnapping of mostly non-white immigrants, and now to the point where they, you know, they don't even like American citizens who challenge them. A lot of what we're witnessing now is a backlash to the victories of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 changes to immigration. And yeah, that you could say that like that was a triumph of liberalism in a lot of ways. But then again, the follow up to that, you know, there hasn't been much of a follow up. So it's like, okay, you end legalized racial discrimination. Okay, what's next? Is there going to be, you know, redistribution of wealth? Especially because, you know, initially, again, the Civil Rights Act came on the backs and was led by African Americans, Black Americans. And the Black American-led civil rights movement expanded rights for pretty much everybody. Really, for anybody who is not a straight white male has benefited from the labor of benefited from the activism of Black Americans. I mean, that's not to take away from like the activism of other groups of people. But again, the Civil Rights Act had an impact on pretty much anyone who's not a straight white male. And that was a result of, again, of the hard work of Black Americans. But after that, okay, like what's the follow up? Like, you know, the next step
was the Fair Housing Act, which they then turned around and gutted.
Right, yeah, the Fair Housing Act, which that again calls into redistribution of wealth. There's certainly, you know, like obviously, like with fair housing, that impacts the quality of schools because so much of school funding is from local property taxes. So if you look at the quality of public schooling for Black students and students of color and lower income working class environments, a lot of the quality of the schooling and the like is shaped by the funding structure of, because, you know, this country does not believe in the federal government funding a quality public education system across the country. So a lot of the funding for schools comes from state and local governments. So state funding and local property taxes. And local property taxes are obviously determined by the value of the housing in that area.
Yes,
so
this is why suburbia exists. This is white people literally moved out of city. I mean, it's like, I don't know if people quite get, like, in the 40s, like at the end of the World War II, like cities were packed and they were, you know, that like suburbia didn't exist. And, you know, white flight happened because they did not want their tax dollars going to educating Black children.
Yep. Yeah.
That's why, you know.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
So, you know, that it's all very much tied together.
Yeah. And so there's obviously a host of issues that Black Americans still face, like the quality of schooling and the fact that, again, like so much of school funding is shaped by just fucking property taxes, which I think is just fucking silly. Public education there should be more federal government funding for public education. Like,
well, we're getting rid of the Department of Education instead. So
yeah, while still also trying to collect student loan debt. So like, but anyway, like, yeah, so there's that, and then mass incarceration, and then with the 80s you get the crack epidemic, which was that was largely instigated by the CIA trafficking drugs into the U.S., particularly in black communities, because during that time the U.S. created basically a creation of the CIA. The Contras in Nicaragua were fighting a war against the left-wing Sandinista government in Nicaragua in the 80s, and to also raise extra money for their war, because there was a Boland Amendment which cut some of the funding from the U.S. to the Contras. So to make up for that loss of funding, the Contras there were members of the Contras who were also drug traffickers, and they were trafficking cocaine into the United States, and the CIA knew about this, but they kind of turned a blind eye because their goal was, hey, we have to fight communism. So if one of their assets is like a drug trafficker, they're gonna fucking look the other way, basically. So, and then as a result of that, yeah, you had the crack epidemic in the 80s, and then the crime wave as a result of that, and then the growth of the prison system, which, and these harsher, sentencing policies that primarily targeted Black Americans, and yet basically have a whole generation of Black people, particularly Black men, who've been impacted by the system of mass incarceration. And so Black America's dealing with a host of issues, like the impact of the crack epidemic, and the impact that mass incarceration has had on the generations that followed. And then the massive racial wealth gap. And I also think another issue that Black America is dealing with is like trying to understand ourselves as a people and our actual culture and our identity, right? So Black America is still dealing with these issues, this different set of issues that the Civil Rights Act, didn't wasn't able to address. But also you have like these Congressional Black Caucus, these leaders, rather than trying to focus on the issues that do impact Black America, like they just pretty much go with what they're just part of the Democratic Party machine. And when shit hits the fan, they are in lockstep with supporting Israel, and less focused on advocating for the interests of Black Americans. And so I think that CBC has become increasingly irrelevant to Black America. And I think the CBC supporting Israel is just one example of that, but I would add that, like really, what has the CBC really done for Black America in terms of, having any sort of militancy in Congress to push for?
They got Nancy Pelosi's kneeling kente cloth.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, what the fuck? Like what? Like literally, like if you look at
that
like,
ended racism.
Yeah, and yeah, the CBC they're out of touch with Black America, and they're increasingly irrelevant. So, the next question is, obviously, where do Black people go from here? And actually, what I'll do is I'll end on that note and give a teaser for my solo episode, because that's actually something I want to tackle. And since we've already recorded for over 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think it's a good point to end on this, and just end right here. Yeah. And then the other stuff. I have other stuff planned to talk about for my solo episodes. So, that's pretty much it. We talked about, just a wrap up, and then we talked about followed up on Venezuela. We talked about Iran, Greenland, ice, and a little bit of Jasmine Crockett, but mostly on just how irrelevant the Congressional Black Caucus has become. Do you have any final thoughts, Peter? Otherwise, we can
man, we haven't done wrap-ups in a while, but you really are leaning into the history teacher. I don't know what else to say other than death to America.
Yeah.
This country, seriously, is fucking bullshit. Not that anyone who listens to this podcast doesn't know this, but it's just worth reiterating sometimes. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess the $1 million questions. It is like, yeah, where do we go from here as a country?
what is to
But
be done?
yeah, where does this country go from here? Because we're at such a weird point. Um, we've had shitty. America's had shitty moments before. It does feel like we're kind of going back to like 1930s Jim Crow, which also overlaps with like 1930s fascism in Germany. But yeah, the next step is like, yeah, how to resist like white supremacy and fascism in this country, and like, which means answering some deeper fundamental questions about this country. But anyway,
And Adam will
um,
answer all of
yeah,
them on his next Patreon episode.
yeah, and also that's why this podcast exists, is to raise those deeper questions, but also like try to think of through dialectics. Think through this is us practicing dialects, but yeah, think through solutions in a dialectical fashion. Um. Anyway, yeah, if you like this episode, uh, become a patron for $5 a month. Patreon.com/RealSankara Hours. You can go to our website realsankarahours.org. And if being a patron financially is outside your budget, which we understand because of this Trump economy is so great for everybody. Uh, if it's outside your budget, then the best thing you can do to support us is go to our YouTube channel and become a subscriber. I've been seeing our subscriber numbers go up, and I think that's a really good sign. So just, yeah, show us some love. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell notification icon in the subscribe button so you can become notified of episodes as they get released. Anyway, yeah, that ends this episode. Keep the faith.
Stay dangerous.
All right, good night, everyone. Take care.
Peace out.